Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just get right into it. What if I told you that the entire system we use to create new, life-saving medicines is kind of broken? I mean, seriously. The whole path from a brilliant idea in a lab to a pill at your local pharmacy is just jammed with problems, wasting billions of dollars and so much time. Today, we're going to dig into a scientific review that argues artificial intelligence isn't just some small fix for this. Nope, it's a total game changer, a complete rebuild. And to really get it, we first have to understand just how big the problem is.
So let's start with a number that's, well, it's just staggering. $200 billion. That's not the total cost over a decade. That's the annual spend on R&D in the pharma world. Every single year. It's a huge investment, right? All aimed at getting new treatments out there. But the problem is, that investment is just hemorrhaging money because of massive inefficiencies.
And you want to know where the biggest leak is? Get this. A whopping 80% of all clinical trials, 80%, get delayed. And you know why? The main reason is patient recruitment. Just finding enough of the right people for these studies is this massive headache, a logistical nightmare that slows everything down, not just by weeks, but often by months or even years.
Okay, so you take that massive cost, you add in all those delays, and this is what you get. A success rate of less than 12%. Think about that for a second. For every 100 drugs that start the journey, fewer than 12 actually make it to the finish line. That's just wild. It's a huge red flag that the whole system is broken, and it's screaming for a totally new approach.
So where does AI fit into all this? That's what we're here to talk about. We're going to look at the $200 billion problem, see how AI can help at every step, face some of the real-world challenges, and then peek into what the future might look like. All right, first up, the $200 billion problem. Let's really break down the crisis in modern clinical trials and see what makes it all so tough and so pricey.
Yeah, the paper really lays it all out. The crisis isn't just one single thing. It's a perfect storm of problems. You've got these insane costs. We're talking an average of $19 million for just one late-stage trial. Then there are the timelines, these 6 to 7 year marathons. And this one is just mind-blowing. 37% of trial sites fail to recruit a single patient, not one. And to top it all off, up to half of the data that's collected is messy, full of errors, and needs a ton of expensive work to clean up.
Okay, so we've got a pretty clear picture of the problem, right? Now let's talk about the solution. This is where we see how AI can start to fix these things step by step. And it's not some magic wand. It's about using smart tools all the way through the process.
And it starts right at the beginning, even before the first patient signs up. We're talking about the design phase. Traditionally, this relied on what experts thought was best based on a few past trials. But with AI, you can feed it data from thousands of trials. The algorithms chew through all that data, find hidden patterns, and help create a much smarter protocol. That's basically the rulebook for the study. It's like having a better blueprint from day one.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because we can actually see the numbers. Look at this. When it comes to optimizing the trial's protocol, AI bumps up the prediction accuracy from 65% all the way to 80%. And for choosing the right trial sites, it's an even bigger jump, from a 45% forecast accuracy to 75%. That's huge. You're moving from a gut feeling to making a decision based on solid data.
Okay, next up, AI tackles that huge bottleneck we mentioned earlier, finding patients. This is so cool. Using something called natural language processing, these AI tools can basically read and understand millions of health records. We're talking doctor's notes, lab results, the whole thing, to find people who are a good fit for a trial. And it does it in a tiny fraction of the time a person could.
But of course, it's not always that simple. This case study is a perfect example of the promise versus the reality. On one hand, the promise was incredible. A project with Novartis and IBM Watson got 78% accuracy matching patients and cut screening time by 94%. Just amazing. But then there's the reality check. It was super expensive to set up. We're talking up to $500,000 per hospital. And it took months of custom work just to get it to talk to each different medical record system. So powerful, but not exactly plug and play.
So how do you even start using something this powerful and complex? Well, the paper suggests a really smart step-by-step approach based on risk. You start with the low-risk stuff, like using AI to just estimate your cohort size. Simple, right? Then you move to medium-risk things, like using it to improve your recruitment strategy. But, and this is the most important part, for the high-risk stuff that directly impacts a patient, like saying yes or no to them joining a trial, a doctor always has the final say. You keep a human in the loop.
All right, so the trial is designed, the patients are in, what's next? AI's work is far from over. This is where it completely changes how trials are monitored. Instead of someone visiting a site every now and then, AI provides a constant, real-time watchdog. The algorithms are always on, 24/7, scanning all the data as it comes in, looking for any errors, any weird patterns, or any potential safety flags.
And the key here is just speed. It totally speeds up the feedback loop. Think about it. Traditionally, it might take 4 to 6 weeks to find a problem with the data. With AI, you're talking 24 to 48 hours. And data cleaning, something that could take 80 hours of an expert's time, gets slashed to around 12. That is a gigantic leap forward for both efficiency and just the quality of the data.
Now, all of this sounds pretty amazing, right? But like we saw with that IBM example, getting this stuff to work in the real world isn't so simple. So let's get into the implementation reality check, the big hurdles standing in the way of everyone using this. The paper points to 3 big connected problems. First, you've got the technical mess. Patient data is all over the place in different systems that don't talk to each other. Second, there's the trust issue. Doctors, and rightfully so, are a bit wary of trusting a black box algorithm with patient care. And third, the regulations are still playing catch-up. The official rules of the road for how to approve and use these AI tools are still a work in progress.
And this quote from the researchers really sums it all up perfectly. Everyone can see the huge potential here. It's undeniable. But actually getting there means we have to seriously and thoughtfully tackle these real-world barriers. It's not going to happen by itself.
But even with those challenges, the future that AI is paving the way for it's just incredibly exciting. The paper makes a strong case that we're on the verge of a completely new way of doing clinical research.
So what does that future look like? Well, for starters, there's something called federated learning. The easiest way to think about it is, instead of moving sensitive patient data around, you send the AI to the data. This lets the models learn from tons of hospitals without ever compromising patient privacy. Super smart. Then there's a big push for explainable AI, or XAI, which is all about cracking open that black box so doctors can actually see why the AI made a certain decision. And finally, the really big one, fully decentralized trials. Imagine participating in a cutting-edge clinical trial from your own living room, using sensors and video calls. That's where we're headed.
Which really brings us to the main takeaway here. AI isn't just a shiny new gadget to speed up the old, broken system. It's a whole new blueprint for how we do medical research, one that's faster, more focused on the patient, and, at the end of the day, just better science. And that leaves us with one final, really important question. It's pretty clear that AI can completely change the game for medical research. So the question isn't if we should use it anymore. The real question for all of us is how. How do we build this future responsibly and make sure these incredible tools are used safely, ethically, and in a way that truly helps everyone?